Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Global Money Week closing ceremony UAE chapter. All right, so I would like to first introduce myself. My name is Ahmed Nazri. I'll be the chairperson for today for this session, and I hope you guys are all prepared to join me to welcome all the guests and the special people that's here with us for today. And first and foremost, I would like to say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good morning to our honorable guest, speakers, and everyone who is tuning live with us throughout our social media platform, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or on LinkedIn. And I would also like to thank you guys for allocating your time throughout this wonderful Sunday to be with us for the Global Money Week 2021 UAE chapter, brought to you by in partnership with United Arab Bank, Jain School of Global Management, and us ISEC here in UAE. For you guys who don't know, Global Money Week is an annual global awareness campaign on the importance of ensuring people, especially for those at the yearly age, to be financially aware and are gradually acquiring skills to make financial decisions and hopefully and ultimately achieve a financial well-being and have much more financial resilience. So throughout the week, we have held interactive activities, sessions, financial literacy webinars in hope that students will find a position where they can make a really wise financial decisions. So from the bottom of my heart and to all those involved in organizing this year's Global Money Week 2021 UAE chapter, I would like to say thank you very much. So what is it so important for Global Money Week this year in 2021? First and foremost, number one is that all the countries that have been participating on this year's Global Money Week had to learn on how to deliver their lessons on financial literacy and financial management totally online. That's why we can see virtual games, ideas and involvement to teach youth all around the world have been much more interesting than it was for the last few years. And number two, the most important part is the information about financial literacy has been much more important to the youth right now, especially during the COVID-19 and the pandemic, because young people is the most affected by COVID-19, and these effects will be amplified as years pass by. So today, we will have a keynote speaker and a panel discussion with United Arab Bank to talk about financial inclusion of youth, and we will end the day with a speech on a topic about leadership in the financial industry. So on this note, I would like to suggest for all of you guys who are tuning us right now to have a really open-minded, engage with our speakers, engage with us on social media. You can tag us at ISEC in the UAE, tag United Arab Banks, and also tag Jain School of Global Management, so that we know that all the youth right now, all around the world, need to understand the importance of financial literacy. With that being said, and without further ado, I would like to invite our very special guest for today, Mr. Ahmad Eideh, Chief Executive Officer of United Arab Bank, to give his opening speech. With that in mind, I'll bring him online. Hi, Mr. Ahmed, welcome.
How are you, Ahmed? Alhamdulillah, everything is fine. Thank you very much.
Perfect. The stage is all yours, and I hope to listen to you.
Sure. Thank you very much. And Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I wish you well. I wish you, of course, well-being, and I wish you week to invite me as a speaker, talking to a lot of Generation Z. Now, I come from Generation X, which is 2 generations before you guys, and you know, you're the age of my 2 sons, basically. So I do have a bit of background of Generation Z requirements as far as the financial arena is concerned. I would like to start by defining what money is. And I do apologize. I do understand this comes after a whole week of interactive sessions on money. But I don't know what you've actually covered within that week. So very simple. We want to keep it as simple as possible today. Definition of money. And people think that money is, the pieces of paper that's in your pocket. Money. That's what people think about. It's as simple as that. Pieces of paper in your pocket, and these pieces of paper have nice drawings on them. But fundamentally, what is money and how did money evolve over time? That's very important to understand and grasp. And, I won't take too long. However, these pieces of money, these papers, these were in the past actually pieces of gold and silver and precious metals. And, because it was cumbersome to carry gold and silver, so with the evolution of money, gold and silver were kept at the central bank, and a paper coverage of what that gold or silver equates would be your money today, this cash. This is what money fundamentally was. Till the early 70s, money became synonymous with equivalent of gold or silver or precious metals. Early 70s, that coverage was done away with through the Bretton Woods sort of agreement, where the substitute of gold and silver to these pieces of paper was substituted with a country's GDP. GDP is gross domestic product. And what it actually means is, this is the simple definition of GDP, which becomes your coverage of cash or money in your pocket, which is the total amount of goods and services produced in a certain country within a time frame of 1 year. That definition is the coverage of your cash today and the pieces of paper you have in your pocket. So it's as simple as that. But again, money is one of the very highly attested subjects that people talk about, and it becomes people's lives sometimes revolve around money. How much do you have? How much you don't have? Do you have it at all, or don't you have money? That becomes a serious question, and I need to address, and give you my personal opinion, whether you do or don't have money, what it actually means to me. That's what money means to me. And money means to me is a means to manage, to purchase my necessary needs in my day-to-day life. I can pay my rent, my bills, buy a means of transportation, which is a car, in my case, but it may not be in many other people's case. Many other people may have to use public transportation. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. In fact, it's environment friendly and it's much more efficient than owning a car. So, do you or don't you have money? It really depends on the individual. Now, I would like to address my friends, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters from Generation Z. Do not succumb to peer pressure, no matter what. You may see a colleague who has more money, or a friend. They can afford to travel every year, maybe more than once. They're using a posh car, but you can't afford it. It's not a problem whatsoever. And it's not even a matter of envying others, whether they do or don't have money. I've seen people with plenty of money, so much money, that live a very unhappy life. And I've seen people with no money whatsoever and lead a very happy life. So it's all about you and your satisfaction, self-satisfaction. This is all I would want to say about having or not having money. But I'm all about financial inclusion. And I firmly believe that everyone has the right to understand why you need money, about saving that money for a bad day, about managing to afford purchasing what you can only afford. I do understand that a lot of our audience today are university students, and I myself was a university student many years ago, more than 30 years ago. And things may have changed a bit from then till now, but the basic reality is the basic factors have not actually changed. You're about to enter into the work environment. And please, if you take some tips from me, and I hope you'll find them very useful. When you do start earning your own money, make a target to save a good chunk of your first salary or your first income coming your way. Don't splash it around. Do not. In my opinion, all you'll do is prolong the journey to accumulate more wealth or to afford more necessities of life. That's all what will happen. Unfortunately, our educational systems in this region, with a very few number of exceptions, do not teach financial inclusion, do not teach the saving of money and what money actually means, and opening a bank account and what does it mean, and saving account and the difference between Sharia compliant, non-Sharia compliant accounts. What does it mean to have a fixed deposit? What does it mean to have a debit card or a credit card? Even the basic distinctions between these very simple and basic concepts, we don't teach them in school. Well, that is true to a certain extent. My home country, Jordan, has recently started teaching this in school, and I was, I'm honored to be part of that leading project where we started with the 7th grade students in Jordan, and they sit for exams on financial inclusion and financial literacy. Now, back to money and back to your first salary. When you do earn that first salary, make a target, make a save target, and spend what's left. Don't do it the other way. Don't spend all your salaries buying unnecessary stuff. Very important. Do not succumb to peer pressure. And whenever we start any career, we start with a much lower salary, lower income. And we may find friends that have wealthy parents that have bought them a Mercedes, for example, and you can't afford a Mercedes. Please do not take loans. Do not take loans to buy that Mercedes that you're craving for. Do not. Of course, I am a CEO of a bank, and banks make money from lending to people, but we need to lend responsibly to people. So I should not be lending to people who, A, don't have the means to repay, or B, even if they have the means to repay, would not put undue pressure on their financials and their livelihood and their style of living. So I should not overburden them with debt. That's very important. If you can't afford to buy a car the minute you start working, there's no problem whatsoever in commuting with, taking the public transportation system in your respective city. And in the UAE, we are blessed with having a very efficient sort of public transportation. You think you can afford to buy a car later on? Okay, good. What do I do? Do I go and ape my friends and buy that Mercedes I was craving for many years ago? Or do I buy an economical car that I can afford and my salary can actually take? I would go with the latter, and I would go and buy an affordable, maybe second-hand car, an affordable car that would, take me places. At the end of the day, that is the aim of having a car. I would not overburden myself at a very early age with debt that I feel I can't repay later. On that note, another invention in banking, which most of you would probably have in your pockets, other than the lovely papers we have that are called cash, you've got the credit card, which unfortunately people abuse by buying things that they can't afford simply because they need to only make a very minimal payment every month, but they don't take care of the interest that is too high on credit cards. And interest on credit cards, if you don't use it wisely, will eat up a good chunk of your monthly salary when you do get a job soon, inshallah. That needs to be very well thought of whenever you do use that card. It's very important you do. And I've seen a lot of cases where actually people have gone bankrupt in their lives, and it affected their livelihoods because they could not service the interest, and accordingly banks would start legal action against these people. They were buying things that they did not need nor could afford. So it's very important. With the limited time I have in this keynote, I would like to draw your attention to the ultimate importance of budgeting. You need to have a budget and spend your financials within that budget. No matter how small or big your financials in pocket are, it's limited. It is limited. And you need to make the best use out of every penny you have in your pocket that would sustain your livelihood, buy you the basics, save money, and whatever's left, you can, after saving money and actually buying your necessities of life, you may indulge in a bit of, buying whatever you like, even if you don't need it, but sometimes people do that. A small example, one time, one of my newly appointed colleagues came to me and said, Ahmad, you're only giving me so much of a salary, and that salary does not even allow me to buy an iPhone. And, this is talking about generational probably differences. But my answer to him was, my friend, how long have you been with the organization? And he just said 6 months only, and I'm demanding a raise in salary. I said, it doesn't work that way. You actually need to earn your promotion. You need to earn it, and you need to work hard. And if your salary, I don't give it to you. So he said, you as me, Ahmed, I'm giving him that salary. The organization gives you a salary in return for the work you give. And if you can't afford to buy an iPhone, there's nothing wrong with the small Nokias that go around for 100, 150 dirhams. It does the basic job, which is communication. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. And who said that you need to put in a full month's salary, even if the organization gives you enough salary to buy an iPhone? Who says that, you take a full month's salary and put it in a device? Like so. You don't need to. So budgeting is extremely important, and you need to know exactly where you spend every penny, because it needs to be done efficiently if you want to accumulate wealth during your livelihood. Not everyone accumulates wealth, and there's nothing wrong with that. You may aim to, you may want to, you may crave it, but the fact of the matter is, in life, Allah, God, gives you your rizq, which is, cash, and more importantly, of course, health is rizq. And you need to be content, aiming for a better life. But if you don't have much of money and it gets to you, believe me, it will destroy you. So most important thing is be happy, aim, have ambition. It may or may not happen. You may fall once and twice and thrice trying to make a better livelihood, and never give up. That's my small advice to you. I'm very passionate about financial inclusion. And of course, there's several types of financial inclusion. Some are directed towards ladies and our daughters, our younger female generation. There are directed to youth. And there's financial inclusion, which again, I'm very passionate about, that is directed to older people, more senior people. And again, mothers and wives who are single and sole bread earners for their families. And those are probably most affected when it comes to financial inclusion. Most affected and least, unfortunately, educated. And they have a huge role to play when it comes to bringing up families, bringing up their kids with very limited means. And it is those that I try as much as I can to focus on, and get them to understand the importance of budgeting, and very importantly, prioritizing what you need in terms of financial needs. So today, I need a new jacket. Can I afford it? If I can't afford it, would my old jacket do for today? And I would plan when I can afford to buy a new jacket according to my cash flows, and my cash outflows, which is the bills I need to settle. I need to pay tuition fees for my son in university, my other son in school. I need to pay electricity, water, and all these necessities of life. And can I then afford to buy a new jacket after paying all this? This is what you need to start thinking of and prioritizing when it comes to financial inclusion and financial planning. I know I've just got a couple of minutes, and I can keep on talking about this topic for hours on end. Unfortunately, I don't have anything other than 1 or 2 minutes. I hope we've benefited from the little I've said on this extremely important topic. And I thank you very much for listening, and would meet you in a few minutes during the panel discussion. Thank you so very much for listening.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed, for an amazing session. I think one thing I want to highlight again here is how important for us youth not to take loan that we are not able to fulfill. I think most of us get so excited with our first salary, especially if our first loans gets cleared from the bank. We're just so ready to spend what we wanted to spend, and we get so excited and overwhelmed. Thank you again for one session. I will also request that you stay so that we can bring on board our panelists and our moderator for today, Mr. Dhruv, Mr. Miss Monica, and Prof. Chris. So in the meantime, well, I'll just have to wait for Prof. Chris. Yes, Prof. Chris is here. So, Dhruv, you can take the session forward.
Can you hear me, guys?
Ahmad. Yeah,
Yes,
hello,
we
hello,
can hear you.
Professor Krish. How are
Hi,
you?
good evening. Good to see you, Dhruv.
Yeah,
All old
welcome,
friends.
welcome to Global Money Week. We
Yes,
have already our guest,
wonderful.
so let me welcome all our guests and all our panelists here.
Sure.
And as you know, we are having this Global Money Week, and this is very very important and specific to UAE. We are having this last closing ceremony, and we thought, why not create some beautiful discussion with the important members who are coming from the field of the services itself, and who has put it together. So let me have this opportunity. I am Dhruv, who is in SP Zen, currently pursuing consulting management, and I would like to welcome our guest. First of all, I would like to welcome Mr. Ahmed. Mr. Ahmed is CEO of United Arab Bank. He is joined the bank in March 2019, and he has 29 years of extensive experience in this regional and international banking, and out of which he has devoted 17 years in UAE only. So he know ins and outs of the banking and the financial services here. His prime responsibilities include the management of the and the strategic decisions in United Arab Bank. And previously, he has held the position of CEO in Standard Bank in the Middle East, which was from the Jordan, Iran, Iraq, Egypt, and Lebanon. And prior to that, he has held multiple positions in international and regional banks. Welcome, Mr. Ahmed, to our Global Money Week.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Dr. Krish Abraham. Let me have this opportunity to introduce Mr. Chris Abraham. He is CEO and head of Dubai campus, SP Jain School of Global Management. I would like to introduce that he is an academician at heart. So he is the one, if you want to peek in his heart, he is academician, pure academician. And he has done his doctorate in uh, design thinking and positive psychology. And he is, through his initiative, he has launched multiple careers, many careers throughout his teaching. And previously, he has corporate experience and consulting experience in many companies. I would like to name a few, that is Philadelphia Consulting Group, Modi, Xerox, TNT Worldwide, as well as worked as freelance consultant in corporate strategy, marketing, and organizational development and HR, as well as he led multiple executive development programs for many leading corporations and government. Welcome, Dr. Krish Abraham, to our Global Money Week.
Thank you very much, Dhruv. Such a pleasure to be with you guys.
And next, moving on to our beautiful guest, Ms. Monica Manoj. So she is the CEO of Finllect. Finllect is the first financial wellness app for the Gen Z in the region, which is going to build the responsible credit and pre-qualify for the financial services and automate their finances. So she is the one who is targeting the Gen Z primarily. She has accomplished fintech production software engineer with a strong technical background, and she is also a social accessibility advocate. And previously, she has scaled a non-profit to upskill the blue collar workforce in the region. And she has done her bachelor's in computer sciences and engineering. Welcome, Miss Monica, to our Global Money Week. So let's start with our discussion. So I would come to Mr.
Thank you
Ahmed.
so much, Dhruv.
Yeah, so welcome. So I would like to come to Mr. Ahmed. So I'd like to understand how do you see this financial services Is it viewed as a luxury? Is it viewed as available for all, or is it viewed particularly for a few people? So how do you see it, the financial literacy here?
Yeah, my honest opinion is it is a necessity, it's no luxury. That's for sure. Is it available for everyone? Unfortunately, not. And there are at least 2.5, 3 billion people globally that are not banked. And here comes the importance of a lot of work that a lot of fintechs are actually undertaking globally. Now, as far as banks are concerned, we are highly regulated. We are a very highly regulated industry. And of course, we need to abide by the rules and regulations of our respective regulators. Here in the UAE, of course, Central Bank of the UAE, and for all those listed banks, they are listed in the stock market, the ESCA. So we have two regulators. For multinationals, they would be even more regulated because they would need to follow other regulators, maybe in London, maybe in New York, maybe in Mumbai, Delhi. So we would be restricted to reaching to the absolute maximum number of people. However, through through collaboration with fintechs, we can reach to a much larger number. Everyone needs financial services, even for the smallest and most simple functions. That is a financial service at the end. So I hope banks can do more, but with the emergence, as I said, of fintechs, it's becoming a dream come true for a lot of people to bridge that gap. It is definitely no luxury. We as banks need to do much more in terms of financial literacy and financial inclusion to include a much wider array of people who are in the gray area where they may be bankable, but they're not aware of how to come about it.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. So, continuing on this, it's absolutely necessary for the person that yes, it is not a luxury; it is the necessity. And coming to Dr. Chris, so I would like to just get your idea on when you are accommodating in the students' parlance. So when you talk with them, when you speak with them, how do you find how they view these financial literacy thing? Do you find them very literate about this, or do you find them uh, annoying things talking when you talk about the financial literacy? Do you find them, going away from you, or do you find them being attracted towards you whenever you talk about this?
See, money excites everybody.
True.
Money makes us very excited if we have plenty of it. It makes you annoyed when you don't have it. So money has a tremendous influence on our thought processes. Now, do youngsters understand money? I don't think most of them understand. I mean, Mr. Ahmed was speaking about a 3 billion population that is unbanked. Now, one is the unbanked part, which is access to financial services. The other is ignorance. And if you look at ignorance, I would say out of a global population of 7.8 or 7.5 billion people, I'd say almost about 80 to 90% of us are ignorant about financial intelligence, if I may use that word. What do I mean by that? Financial intelligence would be the ability to manage money. Whether I have $1 billion in my bank account, whether I have $100 in my bank account, I need to know how to balance my expenses with my savings, with my revenues. Now, I would not blame the population for that. I would blame the academic system for that. Because we haven't taught our children. We haven't taught our children in the schools. We don't teach them, our youngsters in the colleges and universities, about financial awareness. Now, as a result, you will find, and our human brains, on one hand, are awesome, on the other hand, are prone for a number of cognitive biases because of the various chemicals that work in the human brain that we fall a prey. Let me explain what I mean by this. Here's a child that has gone through school, university, college, got a good degree, gets into a job, and then he or she is lured by, I would say, slimy sales professionals who try to sell them different products, including credit cards, including loans. Now, since they don't have the financial prudence or the financial judgment or the financial awareness, all put together, I'll call they are financially ignorant, you'll find them landing up. The guy might be making about, say, 5 to 10,000 dirhams a month. He would have a credit card for, let's say, 2 credit cards or 3 credit cards for 30,000, 20,000, whatever. At least now, with the credit bureaus and all that, that is getting reduced. But it used to be a huge issue. So the answer to your question, are the youngsters aware? Youngsters are definitely not aware. They are ignorant. And I don't want to blame the youngsters. I would blame the system. So what we need, I would very strongly propagate or encourage a system whereby we teach our children the value of money, the value of savings, the value of how money comes and how money is generated and how money can be grown. Okay. And they need to be aware of it right from a young age to understand the value of handling money. And then when they come to the college, of course, many of, like you guys, they come and, you spend money from your dad or your mom who sends you money from some other place. You need to know how to balance it. I mean, I have had 3 kids who go to different colleges who have gone through, and it has never been easy. But over time, you educate them, you teach them the value of money, then they start planning ahead. And I think that's a very, very important responsibility of universities and colleges to educate our youngsters on how money should be managed. In fact, I would say financial intelligence should be a mandatory course for everybody. That would be my recommendation. It's not there as yet.
True, Dr. Chris. So it's the financial literacy necessity and financial literacy and the financial intelligence, a new word for our dictionary. So continuing on to this discussion, I would like to come to Miss Monica. So why this Gen Z, when we talk about these people, why they find it so complicated, so stressing? Is it because of the common notions or myth they have, or is it because of something else like lack of awareness or interest? So is it lack of interest, awareness, or something else? Can you throw some light on that?
Sure. So I think your question is very interesting, and the 2 people who've spoken before me clearly highlight that this is definitely something that is a predominant kind of response to money across all age groups, right? So money stresses a millennial just as much it stresses a Gen Z. But what's really different about the younger audience, or what we've learned from speaking to them and understanding them, is that their reaction and their requirements are dramatically different, right? So the older population or the older people are looking to, learn how to manage their retirement funds or manage their the dependents that they have, whereas the younger people are looking to build wealth or find the best way to become financially independent, no longer wait for a job to really start earning money. By a job, I mean a traditional job. In addition to this, their situation and their circumstances are also dramatically different. We're living in a post-COVID world. We need to accept that the way we're managing our money is very different. We're no longer going to traditional banks to do traditional transactions. We're looking for ways in which we can manage our money in an easier way, in a more seamless manner. And that's why, banks across the region are coming out with their own applications, with their own financial literacy initiatives, and are trying to propagate or position their products in a less intimidating manner. So I do think that the lack of awareness among the younger audience is an opportunity, and it is a reality. But what I have a different opinion about is the fact that younger people definitely want more information. They want to get into the financial ecosystem, and they're willing to learn, and they're willing to get in the game. But what we really need to understand is how we can present financial education to them in an interesting, in a unique manner. And I think with COVID, this has become even more interesting for educational institutions, banks, and fintechs alike, right? So it's become a little more challenging to grab the attention of somebody who's younger, who has access to like 10 different apps or 10 different services from which they're basically making 5 second, 6 second decisions to pick maybe your service or read your article over somebody else's. So this is definitely a challenge because of the lack of awareness, but we can break this cycle because the younger demographic wants in, right? They're desiring to become a part of the system. And it's very reassuring to hear academicians and CEOs of banks being supportive of this this focus on financial literacy. And it's very reassuring, not just as somebody who leads a fintech company, but also as somebody who is a part of this generation. So yeah.
Thanks, Ms. Monica. So, continuing on this discussion, that we are all agreeing on one single point, that this financial literacy, financial intelligence are very, very important, and everyone should be aware about this. So, let's talk about what is available now. So, what is the financial services available, current state of the financial services in UAE? So, I would come back to our CEO, Mr. Ahmad. So I would like to understand from your wide, vast experience of 29 years in this sector. So just throw some light on what is available in UAE in particular, and in MENA region, as you have all the whole experience in this entire region. So what are the financial services available for this youth and current state of that, and how we can address the anxiety and worries of the youth towards that services.
Sure.
Mr. Please.
As far as UAE and the region is concerned, we have almost all financial services at everyone's disposal. We have, your most basic products like credit cards, mortgages, personal loans, auto loans. Of course, going to the corporate banking services, we have all the trade services. A lot of banks are, of course, along with the lending to corporates. So as far as generally speaking, as a general comment, in the UAE in particular, UAE is definitely the most advanced country in terms of financial services in the Middle East region. However, that does not undermine the other countries in the region and their product offering as well. Where I think we need to focus a bit more is, for all the youngsters that are watching us, and some of them may very well be entrepreneurs. They may own their own companies in the near future, their startups. And where I think we need to focus on, and this comes, of course, with the support of the respective governments, is on these startups and lending to startups where, they're just starting to understand business. Of course, it's high risk when it comes to pure balance sheet and P&L analysis. But again, we need to focus on that, because going into the future, it's no longer about employment. That's not the future. The future is about entrepreneurs who start up their own businesses and become employers themselves. So that is an area where we need to focus going into the future. However, a short answer is almost all financial services available in any market in the advanced world is available in this region. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmad. So continuing on to this, the services are available. We need to address the anxieties and worries. And going to Ms. Monica. So just to continue on this, as you see, as you interact with Gen Z, so how you can, get the thing from them that this is the thing which is blocking me from getting the financial services. So how do you perceive those things, and how you will make those processes simpler, services available to all? Just throw some light on that.
Right. So, what we do at Finlect is that we give accessibility to the younger audience or to any Gen Z individual by giving them access to not just financial literacy, but also an opportunity to use their newfound knowledge or their current behavior and their trends with money to actually improve their current situation with the amount of access they have to financial services. So, as Mr. Ahmed has very rightly said, all possible kinds of products and services are currently available in the UAE market. And this includes, complicated commodities, investments, assets, all of that, and ranges all the way to the absolute basic things such as a savings account or a mobile app or ATMs, etc. Right? But what's missing, or what's the one thing that delinks young people from this entire ecosystem, is number one, that the existing solutions are far too overwhelming and complex for them to really understand and feel interested or feel intrigued to take a deep dive. The second thing is their own lack of financial literacy. And the third is that the current way that we're pre-qualifying or we're, categorizing them as eligible or not eligible might not be the optimum way of doing so. And that's why what we do is we bring this accessibility by giving them a simulated credit score or like a learning path to improve that, to bridge that gap, and to help banks or other fintechs really find these young customers and start servicing them. So, similar to what has been said earlier, I think your opportunities are right in front of you. All you need to kind of figure out is what works for you, what products are you looking for, and how can you manage your finances or build a financial history that gets you on that path to actually receiving that particular financial service without you being rejected 3 or 4 times before you actually get that service. So yeah, that's a little bit about what we do, and I think that summarizes the challenges that the Gen Z are facing. Given that we already have all of these financial services available.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Monica. And one unique question that we have talked about youth in general, and this is for specific to the female in our UAE region. So I'd like to know what a specific challenge these female youth are facing, because you will be the best person to think and let us know that is what is the specific thing they are looking at when it comes to finance part.
Right. So, when it comes to the youth, really the difference between the challenges that women are facing versus the challenges that men are facing is a little bit lesser. But the older we get, the more dependent we become, if we do, to our spouses or to whoever we're kind of building a relationship with. That's when the challenges really begin. So I think from a youth perspective, or even from a gender lens or a purely female perspective, I think that attraction or that comfort of depending on someone financially, whether it is a spouse, it is a parent, a guardian, or anybody else around you, that sort of comfort zone is what creates a challenge for us. But there is a solid movement in not just the women that are looking for financial services, but also the number of women that are building financial services or fintech companies in the region. So I definitely think that when it comes to the younger demographic, the challenges that women have, at least in the UAE, not the broader MENA region, are very, very similar to the challenges that actually the male population of the youth is having.
Yes, and we have to do a lot to remove those things. So thanks, Miss Monica. And we talked about the importance, we talked about the services available, and I would like to come to Dr. Chris. So it's about the youth. So how the youth can achieve control over their money, because it is required. Having said that, I would like to hand over to Dr. Chris, how who will suggest how to plan for the financial goals and how to reach ultimately the life goals. Dr. Chris,
I want
please.
to use a very simple communication framework, which is called the Eideh model: awareness, interest, desire, and action. So the first thing that we need to do, and which we have failed, when I say we, policymakers, regulators, educators, family members, we have failed this, to create the awareness among our youth about the importance of money. And as parents, we do even more damage by pampering our children without giving them life lessons on the value of money. So first is creating the awareness, the importance of money, the importance of savings, the importance of prudent financial management, greed versus what is needed, greed versus need. So a lot of lessons. In fact, one of the famous authors of financial inclusion is a guy called Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where he brings in a very powerful case on how we can educate our children on money. So first is awareness. Now, thankfully, we have digital tools, we have video tools, we have social media, we have different apps that can help us to create powerful content in the form of stories that can captivate youngsters. Once we send those powerful story-based awareness content, then comes the interest. So once the interest is there as to how, then as Ms. Monica was saying, there are a whole range of options available. From the simplest savings bank to commodities to futures, whole range of options available. So then you create that education. So from literacy, you move it to education. And from education, you move it to intelligence. So people get to know different options, and which are the ones which are more risk prone, which are the ones that are less risk averse. Then the other concept of long-term versus short-term, gratification, loss aversion. So I think there's a lot of work that can be done because thanks to, one, the technology advances, two is our knowledge of the human brain, and we know its weaknesses. We know how to manage the human brain because that's where the decision making happens. And the third area which becomes extremely relevant is behavioral economics, which again teaches you all the cognitive biases, including our biases towards finances. So once we understand that and educate our children, create the awareness, create the interest, then the desire becomes something part and parcel of their system, biological, neurological system, or neurobiological system, if I may use that word. And then they start acting on it. And we need to encourage that. So what happens is in schools and colleges, we need to create financial clubs, money clubs. We need to meet more often. We need to get people like Ms. Monica, Mr. Ahmed, coming over to the campuses, highlighting, talking to students, making them understand, okay? And there's another very important thing that we normally miss out, okay, which is normally clouded by the media. That might sound a little controversial, but it's extremely important. The 1% versus the rest of the world. The 1% has about 50 to 60% of the global wealth versus the rest of us. And people need to know about it. People need to know this disparity. People need to understand the inequalities and then prepare themselves to see how they can make themselves financially independent. And the good news, as Mr. Ahmed said, the future will not be people who will be job seekers, but they'll be job creators. So more and more you're finding the entrepreneurial mindset among youngsters, which again would require financial planning. Again, let me tell you with a word of caution. Now, a lot of youngsters have very good, bright ideas. Now, the problem where it comes is, and these ideas become extremely exciting, worthwhile. So they go in for Series 1, Series 2, Series 3 fundings, equity. And then when the money comes in, many of them don't know how to, use that money, utilize that money. A classic example is WeWork. Many of you may be familiar with the fiasco, the disaster that happened because of financial mismanagement. They got millions of dollars as funds and didn't know how to deploy it right. So again, even at an entrepreneurial side, and these were youngsters. Adam, I forgot the second name. And these people, again, have challenges. So I think it's extremely important that we educate them, creating the awareness, the interest, the desire, and action. And then on an ongoing series, so it should be continuous. Financial prudence should be an ongoing, continuous process of learning, till we die. So even youngsters, even elders, all of us need to know the latest. Now you see this huge trend on crypto, bitcoins and all that. What is it? Is it really worthwhile? Everybody is going towards it. Is it really prudent? Or should there be regulations? So many. So awareness first, then interest, then the right desire and action. That's what I would say.
Exactly. Thanks, Dr. Chris. A very beautiful message, that awareness first and the rest will follow, and it is a continuous process. So I would ask Mr. Ahmed, your message to youth for the controlling of their money and reaching the financial goals. Mr. Ahmed, please.
Well, thank you, sir. I'll keep it brief because we only have 1 minute.
Yes.
And I apologize for the repetition. If we do not plan, if we need to exactly, clearly understand our needs, plan for them, please ask people who are more experienced. There's nothing wrong with asking. Take opinions, write it down, have an exact aim of what you want and how will you reach to that aim and by what means. Of course, financial part is an integral part of the whole planning process. Please do not squander money left, right, and center, not knowing the outcome of this money. You need to deploy money very efficiently and get the maximum outcome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Ahmed. It's nice that you should be aware and don't hesitate to ask the experts. So they are available. Go and ask. And we have a very less time, so I will go to Miss Monica. So just your message to Gen Z. They will listen.
Great. So I think my quick message would be: don't be afraid of the M word. Break the taboo, have conversations, and really start discussing your strategies with money and what you do with your money. Because maybe you don't read books, or maybe you don't look up these things, but if you just have a conversation with the people around you, you might just learn from their mistakes or from the tips or tricks that they use. And another thing, and a super duper important just money tip I want to give away, is that always, always, always have an emergency fund. No matter where your money is coming from, make sure you have at least 3 to 6 months of money in your savings account to manage your current lifestyle. So yeah, that's just a couple of tips from my end.
Yeah, thanks. That's nice. So youth, the message is wide and clear. Start thinking about it, do, and don't hesitate to ask the experts. So start from right now. Thank you very much, and for taking your time out and coming to our Global Money Week and talking to our youth, spreading the message. We should start from this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dhruv, everyone, all our amazing speakers for this wonderful session. I will just like to thank again for everyone who come up to this stage to provide their inspiring speech and share with us their thoughts of what is financial literacy, how us youth can actually improvise ourselves to be more financially aware or financially literate in making financial decisions. Without further ado, I would like to take this opportunity to bring on board Ms. Darys Estrella. She is an international speaker and a consultant and author, and also an expert in the capital markets. And an interesting fact about her is that in 2019, she was recognized by the Congress of United States as the most influential Latina in the US, and also was given the Women of the Decade in Finance and Leadership by the Women Economic Forum. And in 2012, she was recognized as the best CEO of the Dominican Republic by European Magazine. On this amazing ending of today on the lines of financial literacy and also a line of what ISEC do as a leadership organization, I would like to invite Ms. Darys Estrella, who will be delivering the closing speech of today on the topic of leadership in the financial industry. With that being said, Ms. Estrella, welcome online. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, and good afternoon to all of you. It's actually 9 a.m. where I am in this lovely Caribbean island. So I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to do the closing presentation today, and congratulate all of the people who are connected, all those young people, for investing in you, for always be on the learning mode. And I'm sure that you have learned a lot of stuff during this week, finance in all different aspects. What I've been asked to talk to you about is leadership in the financial industry. So I will share a presentation with you, if you allow me to. Let me share screen, 1 second.
Absolutely.
Entire screen. Can you see it or no?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Hold on 1 second. This is live.
Yeah.
I'm doing share your entire screen, but it's not letting me do it. Is there any chance that you guys can share it from there, or because it's not letting me do it here?
Sure. Let me just find your slides.
Okay, that would be great. I apologize, but this is live. And, I know we only have half an hour. I will try to do my presentation. I'll leave a few minutes for Q&A at the end. But in the event that we don't have enough time, feel free to contact me. At the end of the presentation, I will have a slide with all my, the different networks. The one that I use the most is Instagram. So you could write to me through the direct message, and I will make sure that at some point I will reply. Just be patient.
Okay, I'm opening it now.
Okay.
Just let me know when to move.
Okay. Processing. Sorry that we have lost a few minutes here, but I promise that I will be on time. I can't see it. It's not.
Yeah, it's just loading a little bit slow. Okay, it's there. Let me just open the slide. All right, it's there now.
Perfect. Okay. So as I mentioned, I was asked to speak about leadership in the financial industry, and I'll go directly. Just go to the next slide, please. So the financial industry is facing a lot of challenges, I guess like never ever before. We are facing unprecedented disruptions and uncertainty, especially during this pandemic that, we don't know exactly what's going to happen next. We have rising client expectations all the time, new competitors coming in, the regulations that are changing all the time. When you think you know it all, they change it again. As well as the new technology, which is, changing all the time. So knowing that, we need to have certain characteristics and certain competencies to not only survive in the financial industry, but to thrive. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about. So if you can move to the next and the next one. The first one is that you have to be proactive. You have to be all the time, taking initiatives. You need to step up and take charge, especially during these difficult situations, after the pandemic. But that has always been the case. I worked in Wall Street for 15 years, and I barely had time to think. I had to make decisions within seconds. You need to anticipate situations and be ready to act. And, especially to these young people who are watching today, never ever go to your boss with a problem unless you have thought of the solution. And I'm not saying that you need to have the right answer, but at least when you come to me or to your boss, make sure that you have given it some thought. so that we know that at least you're taking the time to think about it. And ask to take on new roles and projects. Don't be the kind of employee or collaborator who says, that's not part of my job description, or I don't get paid to do that. Always raise your hand and be willing to do more than what you are supposed to do. And I like this quote from Grace Hopper that says, it is better to get forgiveness than permission. I love that, especially in the financial industry. Just go ahead and do it, and then you ask about it. Next, please. Another one is decisiveness. We need to have people who can, who are decisive. You must make decisions quickly and appropriately. As I mentioned before, when I was in Wall Street in the trading floor, you don't have much time to think. But even when it comes to clients, you need to know what's going on, and there's no time to hesitate. You need to have that sense of urgency. It's not like you have another job where you can take your sweet time to plan everything out and make decisions. And I'm not saying that you don't plan and that you don't make decisions the right way, but the financial industry is just very fast paced. And sometimes, just sometimes, you need to follow your gut, your instinct. I remember one time this was 2003, I believe. I was in Brazil, and we had, 1998, I'm sorry. I was in Brazil, and the world was coming to an end. Asia had collapsed, Russia had collapsed, Mexico had collapsed, and I was in Brazil during this crisis, in one of the government offices, and every meeting that I went, people kept telling me that everything was okay. And the country was losing $1 billion in reserves daily. And I kept saying, but how are you going to control the exchange, the real? They kept telling me there was no problem. Something told me that they just could not accept what the problem was, and that something told me, get out of Brazil. And I did, and that was only using my gut, because at every meeting that I went to, whether it was the private sector or the government, everyone kept telling me that it was okay, but it wasn't. So sometimes, be confident and just follow your gut and your instinct, and most of the time you're not going to be wrong. Next, please. You need to take charge. You are in charge of your own destiny. A lot of the people that we have watching today are young people beginning their careers. You are the one who must manage your career. No one will do it for you. No one will take you by the hand and just tell you, oh, he or she is such a nice person, let me help them. No, you are in charge. You are the one who needs to build relationships. You need to get a mentor. I was able to connect a little earlier at the last panel, and someone was mentioning that. You need to get a mentor, get someone who has been in your shoes. And whether it's at the university or when you get your first job, invite someone for coffee. It usually works. You just ask them, I would like to follow this path. What do you think I need to get to where you're at? What are the skills that I need? What do you like? What don't you like about this job? What keeps you up at night? And people are usually willing to meet with you and help you. Raise your hand when you can and speak up. Don't be in a meeting just taking notes and, yes, it's good to absorb everything and to listen and to learn, but you need to raise your hand and to speak up when you have an idea. And how do you do that? Make sure you prepare yourself better than anybody when you have a meeting, that you add value, that when people leave the meeting, they say, oh, wow, that person was added a lot of value to this conversation. Don't just be there, doing nothing. So get ready always for a meeting, be on time, take charge of your own career, because no one will do it for you. Next slide, please. You need to know yourself very well. You must be self-aware. You need to know your strengths and weaknesses. And what do you do with your strengths? You take advantage of them. You make sure that if you're really good at something, you use it all the time. Your strengths, you need to recognize them, because the only way that you can actually work on them is if you know what your weaknesses are and work on them. For example, if you are not good in Excel or some application, make sure that you take a class or that someone teaches you or you learn. If you're not good at making presentations, and that's part of your job because you need to do presentations monthly to your boss or to a team, and your knees shake when you're going to do that speech, take an oral communication class, or make sure that at home you stand in front of the mirror and you practice over and over again, and until you feel very comfortable with it. But you must always be on learning mode all the time. And again, if you are here today, it's because you are taking time to invest in yourselves, which for that, I take my hat off and I congratulate all of you. Next slide, please. Emotional intelligence. This is one that's hard and not everyone has, especially early on in their careers. But this trait cannot be underestimated, especially with customer relationships. In this financial world, there's one thing that cannot be automated. We know that a lot of jobs have been lost because of automation, but one is very hard to automate, which is that face-to-face communication, that, looking at the person in the eye, reading what they're telling you. That cannot be. So make sure that you are always under self-control, especially during difficult situations. Again, we have been living this pandemic for a year, and this one is one of the key ones that you must have. And again, you must be able to engage with clients. I can speak from my own experience. Some of them could be very nice. Some of them could be very, very difficult. And especially with those is where you have to show self-control. Next one, please. And I believe that one of the most valuable characteristics of a leader is to be humble. You need to be and stay humble. You must attract, motivate, and develop employees, your collaborators. Do not think that you have all the answers, because you don't. You could be an expert in something and you could be very good at other things, but you're not going to know it all. So it's okay to admit when you don't know something, and you let the team share their experiences, their know-how, and you can learn from them. Some people believe that by doing this, you are going to be vulnerable, or that people will think that you're weak. But I think it's actually the opposite. When you're honest and when you're humble and you're authentic, people see you as, wow, this is someone that I trust, that I would like to follow. And so rather than make you weaker, I think it makes you stronger. Next one, please. This one is really hard, especially for younger people, because when we're young, we think that we want to conquer the world and that we are invincible and that you can do anything and work 24 hours and do it all. And let me tell you, I was like that also. I mean, I was in my 20s, in my 30s, and I thought that I could work 22 hours a week. And the truth is that you cannot. You are going to be burnout. So it is really important that early on in your career, you learn the work-life, personal balance, because you're not going to last very long if you don't. And I'm not saying with this not to work hard. You need to work really, really hard. You always have to give your very best, but without, you cannot lose track of what is the most important thing in this world, and it is you. When I ask, let's say, a mother, they tell me, oh, my children, or I ask a guy, he says, my wife. No, the most important person in your life is you. And if you don't take care of you, of your health, your mind, your spirit, you are going to be burned out. And we don't want that, because if you will go into a career, if you go into an industry, you would like to last. You would like to be sustainable in time. And working 22 hours a day is just not possible. So you need to find something that you're passionate about, whether it is the gym, whether it is spending time with your friends, whatever. For example, in my case, I am a marathon runner. You don't have to go that crazy. A marathon is 42.192 kilometers or 26.1 miles. And for me, when I run and when I ride my bike, is the time for myself. I don't care if the world has come to an end. That is the time where I can recharge my batteries and then be able to be my very best at everything else that I do. I could be the best partner, I could be the best mother, I could be the best executive, but I can only do that if I am well. If I'm not well, if I'm always exhausted, everything that I do is going to be halfway, and we don't want that. We want the best of you. And the last thing I'll say about this work personal life balance is that please, please, please make sure that you take time and that you spend quality time with those people that you love. I know in finance, this might sound kind of, oh, no, it is important because those loved ones will not always be here. We have lost many people during this pandemic. I'm sure probably all of you know, if it hasn't happened to one member of your family, someone very close that you knew, they will not always be there. And when you are at that last minute, you're not going to say, last minute of your life, you're not going to say, oh, I wish I could work more. I wish I had been promoted. I wish I had made $1 million. You would probably wish that you spend more time with the people that you love. And I have lost close family members, and I'm telling you, it is crucial that, just give them time. Just tell them you love them, hug them, call your parents. I know young kids, when they go, I have three young adults, and you have to tell them to call you. But if you have a mother and a father and you're blessed with having them alive, make sure you call them, please. If you have a partner, a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, make sure that you tell them that you love them. And if you have kids, do that as well. Next slide. I think it's crucial that you be inclusive. This is not only the financial industry, but in any sector that you go into. You need to value people of different backgrounds and culture. When you sit at the table and you have everyone who thinks the same way, because everyone comes from the same background, the same religion, the same school, they're all from the same social class. I don't think those teams will be very creative, or you're going to get a lot of innovation. So you need to value people from different backgrounds and culture. It is key. You need to respect the differences. And that's where the richness is. When you have diverse teams, people will have different points of view. And that's exactly what you need. Diverse teams are, I think, a strategic imperative today in this century. And that's what leadership needs to be sustainable in time. And when I talk about it being inclusive, I mean different people making them feel included when you have them in the room. It's not just to have diverse teams to say that you are a good company or that you are, a good person, a good leader, but really listen to them and take the time to learn from the different ideas. Next one, please. I don't know about your culture, but in our culture, in the Latin culture, it is very easy to feel ashamed when you fail. And I want to tell you that accepting failure is a process. It's part of the success. You will find very few people, I mean, if not everybody, if you have been successful, you have fallen at some point in your career. And you will fail more than once. And there's nothing to be embarrassed of, nothing to be ashamed of. I believe that the only way that a failure could be a failure is if you don't learn from it. So you need to take it as a learning opportunity, because that's what it is. When you fall and you go through that process and you ask yourself, what did I do wrong? You learn, okay, so I will not do this again. And when you go through that process, you become a better person, you become a stronger person, and you become a more resilient person, which is what we all need to be. Next slide, please. And being able to adapt. This is an industry that is changing all the time. When you think you have all the answers, they change all the questions. You must adapt to the digital revolution because it's changing all the time. And being able to adapt reduces operational risk for everybody, for the organization that you're working at. But if I would say finance probably and technology are two of the fastest changing industries, and you need to be able to adapt quickly and efficiently. Next one, please. You need to be a great communicator. You need to have great communication skills. They have to be strong. They have to be strategic. And it doesn't matter what role you play, whether you are in operations, whether you are in the trading floor, whether you are in investment banking, whether you are, corporate finance, you must be able to communicate and communicate the why and the purpose, because otherwise people will keep wondering, well, what is the message? And you need to be clear and concise. When you have, especially when you lead a team, make sure that they understand what the message that you're sending is. And that when you need to tell them something good, you do that. But when you have to tell them a difficult decision or a difficult situation, make sure you do that as well. So you have to be clear and concise. Next one, please. And this is the last one that I wrote. I mean, there are many more, but because of the time, I could only choose 12. But to me, it is the most important one, and it's having integrity and ethics in everything that you do. It might take a lifetime to earn it, and it takes a second to lose it if you do the wrong thing. And I'm not talking about not making mistakes. We all make mistakes. It is how we react to that mistake that makes a huge difference. When I was 22 years old, my first job on a trading floor in New York City, I actually I had to do a trade, and I did it the wrong way, and it was $60 million involved in it. To me, to the company, $60 million was nothing, but to me, coming from a poor background of this island in the Dominican Republic, having the risk to lose $60 million, I wanted to die, and I thought my career is over. No one will hire me. My boss is going to kill me. And I was actually, literally almost in tears. My reaction was, I went to my boss and I said, I screwed up. This is what I did. I don't know how, but how do I fix it? Just tell me, help me, because I don't know what to do. And I thought literally that he was going to fire me at that moment. He just told me, sit down. And he said, well, I'm sure you will not make this mistake again. You need to be careful. But what I admire the most about you is that you came to me and you told me the truth. And to me, that is more valuable than anything else. So always say the truth, always do the right thing, even when no one else is looking, because being able to walk with your head up high is priceless. I always say that one of the most things that I'm proud of myself is that I can sleep at night with a clear conscience, and that my 3 children, will never be embarrassed because someone will say their mother did this illegally or something wrong. So these sort of the 12 characteristics that I thought the most important, the last one being the most important to me. And go to the next slide, please. Well, I just want to say that, make sure that you start developing these important leadership traits that I mentioned to you, that are a must if you want to thrive in the financial sector, not only to survive, but to thrive, which is all what we want you all to do. And do not risk being left behind. And the time is now. And again, I congratulate all of you for taking the time to invest in yourselves during this week of Global Money Week, where I'm sure you have learned many, many different things in the financial sector. And the next slide, which is my last one, that is my contact information. Again, if we don't have time today to, if I don't have time to answer your questions, because I don't know how we are in terms of time, I think we have 2 minutes left. You can contact me. The social network that I use the most is Instagram. So feel free to contact me. And I promise that I will answer your questions at some point. Just give me some time. So thank you again for inviting me. And now I leave it up to you guys.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Miss Darys Estrella. Actually, before we still haven't yet any questions, you guys can put in the questions box, whether you're in Facebook or in YouTube. I'll be picking it up and also asking the question to Miss Darys Estrella. But that's a question from my side. You talk about your journey when you start up, number of times that you face, and especially the part where you highlight about ethical dilemma that you face. Because I believe as a leader, normally you would like to avoid cases or areas where your integrity are damaged and I will really highlight the point that you highlight that. But some further question I want to ask is that, is there any moments or project that you are so proud of? Because you highlighted that you have done a lot throughout your career that brings you to where you are now. If you were to back, which of the project that you are always proud of and why?
Well, you mean when talking about ethics and integrity?
I'm talking in general in the financial industry.
Well, being able to say no, there are a lot of temptations. And I always say that if I had said yes to many things, I would be a billionaire today, but I will not be able to sleep well at night. And I would be always wondering when that, something that I did wrong will come out. And so I'm very proud to have the values that my parents instilled in me, always doing the right thing. I don't care if no one is looking, because when you do something wrong, at some point it will come out. When I was at Goldman Sachs in New York, they used to tell us, if you don't want something to come out on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, don't do it. And I always tell myself, if I don't want my parents to know, if I don't want my kids to know that I did something wrong, I won't even think about it. To me, it's non-negotiable. So I am very proud to have, being raised with the values that I did, especially with integrity and ethics, to always do the right thing, even if no one knows, but you know. So always choose the right path, because it is not worth it, guys. It is not worth it. You can, it takes a lifetime to build your name and reputation, and it takes a second to lose it. So make sure that you take care of your name, your family. Just don't do the wrong thing.
Absolutely true. Thank you for sharing. I think we'll still wait for some few questions. If there's anything from my side, the last one from my understanding is that becoming a leader, most of the time you always have this new idea that you always want to implement, that this really forward thinking that you have to drive changes. But most of the time, this also brings resistance.
Oh,
so in
yeah.
such cases, how do you usually come about when you come about with this kind of situation?
What you try to do is, one of the skills I mentioned was having great communication skills. You need to sit down with, everyone who's involved and making them understand why you're doing what you're doing. Try to ask them how they can add value to that project. Is making them feel part of the solution. Because if you, at the end of the day, you will do what you have to do because you are in charge. And at the end of the day, you will report to a board of directors that you are responsible for. But it is going to be much easier if you try to bring people on board and convincing them why this is important, why this is a project, to look at the benefits and how they will each one benefit and learn and grow from whatever you're trying to implement, rather than have that authoritative method. You're doing this because I say so. That doesn't work anymore, not in this century, not after the millennials generation. They don't work that way.
Yeah, I think that's also very important, especially us for youth like me, because most of the time we like to do things on our own. We like to be a one-person army.
Well, and you will, again, you will make your decision, sometimes even before you meet with your team, but you have no idea what a difference it will make when you make them feel part of the process, because it makes them feel important. It makes them feel like, wow, they're taking me into account. And that creates a lot of loyalty and a lot of trust in you, and they will follow you much easier than if you don't. And then that's when the resistance will come in. And it is much easier to work with a team that wants to really, that buys in into whatever vision you have.
Perfect. Actually, we can take one last questions from our audience here. Let me just bring it up for everyone to see. The questions is, what is one thing that you knew later you wish you had knew at the beginning of your career?
Wow, okay. I think it has to do with what I mentioned about the work-life balance. You always think when you're young that, oh my God, you're, in my case, a superwoman, and that I had to do everything all the time or the world was gonna come to an end. And you know what? It doesn't. And I'm not saying not to work hard. So please don't get me wrong. You need to work hard, but take time for yourself. I only found that out in my late 30s, that I said, you know what? The company is not going to collapse if I don't look at my BlackBerry at 11:29 when I had just come home from work 2 hours ago. So what I would love to tell myself when I was younger is what I told you: make sure you work hard, but that you spend time with yourself, that you invest in you, and you spend time with those people that you love.
Wonderfully said. I think we just had one new question. This is the last. I don't want to take much more of your time. We have one, I think it's really quite interesting question. It goes also back to your ethical question that we had earlier. In a case where you had to deal with an ethical challenges and repercussions of, wait, let me just, how do I rephrase it? So how did you deal with an ethical challenges and what was the repercussions?
Well, when I moved from New York City to Dominican Republic, I was the CEO of the stock exchange here. That's why I came. And I remember I had to transform all the technology because it was very, very old, and we had to buy all new computers and change the systems. And one of the suppliers insisted in meeting with me. I don't know about technology. I mean, I had to learn because I was a CEO, but the person in charge was the manager for technology, and I was involved in the process just because I was a CEO. Well, this one supplier insisted, and I kept saying, why does he want to meet with me? I don't really know anything about, systems and computers. Well, he insisted so much that I agreed to have a meeting, and then he proceeded to tell me, after telling me a few things, he asked me, you know how things work here, right? And I was very naive and very innocent, and I said, well, yeah, we asked for three different suppliers, and we compare, and we are going to choose the best one. And he said to me, no. What we do is, if you need to buy, let's say 50 laptops, and we say they each cost $2,000, but they really cost only 1,000, and then we split the other 1,000. I was like, I was in shock because I know there's corruption everywhere in the world, but at least in my experience in the US, I never experienced that. And I just asked the guy, very matter of factly, I'm going to ask you to get up and just get out of my office and don't come back. And to me, it was very easy because to me, it's not even like a gray area. There's no, it's black and white. It's either right or wrong. And there's no way, as I mentioned before, that I will, after working for so many years, so hard to have a name, to have a reputation, to have the respect and credibility that I have, that I'm going to lose it just because someone wants to give, split some money with me. So being able to say no and always with conviction, to me, has been probably the biggest thing in my career, because that's one example, but I've had to say no many, many times when it comes to a situation like that. And I'm very proud that I have. So you will be faced with those situations more than once, and make sure that you remember what your parents taught you, that to have ethics and to have integrity at all times, even when no one is looking, but
Thank you very much, Ms. Darys Estrella, for wonderful sharing. I think that closes your session for today, and I wish you a very best and have a good weekdays.
Thank you so much. It's Sunday morning for me here, so I will be enjoying my Sunday. Much, and congratulations again to all these young people who are investing in themselves to learn, because like I said, the time is now. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen that's here tuning with us, I will just like to say thank you very much for your active participation in this closing ceremony. On behalf of the team that's working behind the scene to make sure that we deliver on this amazing Global Money Week 2021 UAE chapter, I hope you guys enjoy this ceremony and importantly, understand the message of the week, which is financial well-being and financial resilience. The call that we want to extend to each and every one of you to understand that you have the responsibility to take care of your own financial well-being. And in order to do this is to be aware and take as much knowledge as possible while you are still young. With that, I just want to say thank you very much for being us today and hope to see you guys next year on Global Money Week 2022. Sorry, 2022. And that's all for today's. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the weekend or weekends, no matter where you guys are in which parts of the world. With that, I'm signing out. My name is Ahmed Nazri, and thank you for tuning us for this week. And bye bye.